Hey everyone, welcome to the UnPack Pittsburgh podcast. My name is Alaina, and today with us we have Christian Jones, a model, speaker, and coach. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm so excited.
Well, Christian, thanks for joining us. And why don't you kind of just kick it off, start a little bit about telling everybody about you and kind of what you get into and what you have going on in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Christian. As I said, I'm from Uniontown, Pennsylvania. It's a small town about an hour outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I work as a commercial print and lifestyle model in Pittsburgh. I work with brands like Route 21, American Eagle, GNC, Dick's Sporting Goods, just to name a few that I work with consistently. So whenever I say commercial print lifestyle model, whenever you're flicking through the channels on TV, you might see my face. You might see me in an ad. You might see me when you go into a store. When I say model, a lot of people think fashion when they think of runway or high fashion. It's kind of on the other end of the spectrum of that. With that, I do consulting for the modeling. I also do public speaking and business coaching with both of those in mind. So always all around the city, always working and doing a lot with print and video. That's really my specialty in the area that I work. But yeah, and then I consult people on the side.
Thank you for that intro. So, what got you into modeling? Can you touch on your path on how you found your passion for it?
Yeah, so modeling kind of fell into my lap per se. It was COVID. I graduated from IUP and COVID hit, and I had no options. No job, nothing was working for me. And I actually had a few classes in photography. And I was like, okay, we might do some photography on the side. Fell into that. That led me to website developing, blog creations, all things content and media related before social media kind of was a big thing. And I stumbled upon talent agencies. I didn't know what that meant. Because when you find photography, you got to find the people that work with them. And I saw that modeling was something of interest. And when I first read it, I thought it was high fashion. I thought it was New York, fly me to Italy kind of thing. And I was like, why not? So I actually submitted 3 times in a month only because they said not to. So I found the agency. I looked at it as a challenge. They said only submit once. So I submitted 3 times and they got back to me. And it took about 6 months before I got my first job with Dick's Sporting Goods. And ever since then, after that first job, I applied a lot of the things that I teach people and teach models. And here we are 3 years later, consistent work. And it's been an absolute blessing.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Good story.
Yeah, thank you.
So you've mentioned public speaking. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? How does that kind of relate? Because when I think of public speaking, I think of big crowds and audiences or like students. How does that kind of work parallel with your gig?
Yeah, so before I became a model, I was already a public speaker. I'm certified to public speak under John Maxwell. He's an
Okay.
author of some of the most renowned leadership books, and I work under him with him and his team, and we teach his lessons. So I did that. I've been doing that for about 6 years since I was
Wow.
19,
Okay.
and that was already there before the modeling. I was doing workshops, I was doing mentoring workshops, networking workshops, a lot of things just to bring community and add value. And that was already something I was passionate about and involved in. And whenever I found modeling, I realized I can really make both of these work together and be cohesive. So once the modeling started picking up and business was doing very well, I started consulting and I just took the principles and practices I used to public speak and I put it right into the consulting and it's been working well for me. I do leadership workshops. I host networking events. I do a lot of things in that space.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of how I make them work for each other.
Are they all in the modeling space or like, because the leadership, I mean, first of all, the Maxwell books. Elaine, have you read any of his books? I'm just curious if they've made you do it in school.
No.
He's anyone in business knows at least three of his books.
Yeah.
Some of them are legendary.
Mhm.
But do you like coach just like any kind of leadership group, or how does that work?
So companies, small groups, or just peer to peer, one on one. I
Okay,
mean,
so it doesn't
any
matter the
spectrum.
industry.
Yeah, it
Okay,
doesn't really
gotcha.
matter because leadership is it's a diverse topic, but you can teach it to
Sure.
anybody. So, anyone can call you and book you. Right now, for me, a lot of it's one on one. I've spoken at schools. I've done small groups, small sessions, but for the most part, because of my schedule with work and modeling, I kind of keep it one on one.
Okay. What's your favorite book of his? I'm just curious if you have one.
Favorite book? Oh man, so many books, and so many books we teach on. Um, I'd say the Irrefutable Laws of
That's
Leadership.
probably the most.
That's
That's
one of my
probably one of the
favorite
most
ones.
classic.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. Every year, actually, I'm going down to Orlando in 2 days to be down there for the conference. We have two conferences a year,
Oh,
and
sweet.
we get access to all the books and all the speakers involved. But all of his books, I mean, have helped me, and it helps me pivot in life. And a lot of his books got me through COVID and continue to get me
That's
to
cool.
grow more and more through this industry that I'm working in.
That's cool. So you actually practice what you're preaching. That's kind of
Of
cool. It
course,
kind of
yeah,
affected you. So it's like it probably makes you more effective. One of my favorites is I might butcher the title, but How Successful People Lead, something like
yeah,
that. But
mhm,
that's a really good book as well. So
yeah.
Well, since I'm not very familiar with this Maxwell thing, can you explain a little bit on like some main points you hit when you speak about it?
So whenever I speak, a lot of it is, especially when it comes to companies, it's usually revolved around what is their organization, what are the biggest problems they're having in leadership, and we take the material in the books, and we have course material, and we have other things that help, but for the most part, we take the book material and we apply it to the company to help them figure out what's missing and what can be added. And through the peer-to-peer, it's the same thing. The one-on-one sessions are the same, where it's figuring out, do you need a mentor in your life? Do you need to practice more leadership principles? Do you need to work on more leadership qualities? I mean, there's so many things when you talk about leadership. And whenever someone contacts me or someone that's an extension of John, we just take those lessons that he teaches and we help people make them more practical. And it doesn't really matter the age because it's such a wide range. But we take a lot of material and we try to break it down way before we actually have the session, and we talk about it. So that way, whenever we do have the session, people can walk away with something.
that's cool. I'm sure we'll get into this later also, but just right now, if someone's interested, whether it be business or someone who wants to kind of get into that space, how do people reach out to you to get to know more?
Yeah, so people can contact me directly through my business email. It's Coach Chris at christianmjones.com.
Cool, cool. And then as far as 2024 goes, what do you have planned for 2024? It sounds like you're at a good spot in life. You have all things going for you. What does the year look like?
Yeah, so before, actually, I think it was October of last year, 2023. I sat down, wrote my goals down for the year. Just wanted to be prepared, and one of my goals was to be booked every week, if not booked every month, and as a model, and just to have consistent work as a model, because that's one of the hardest things to attain as a model is to find consistent work. You can be booked every 3 months, every 4 months, something like that. So one of my goals this year was to try to be booked every single month or every single week, and it's worked. Um, a lot of
Nice.
a lot of hard work and connecting and networking has been in play, but we're hitting March, and I've been booked every single week, and probably 4 out of 7 days every single week. So it's been an absolute blessing, whirlwind of blessings coming my way. But on top of the modeling, I want to just be able to give it back in a sense and add value to other people. And that's when the consulting comes into play and the teaching and coaching, because as much as I want to attain the things that I put my all into, I want to help other people find that same path, whether it's modeling or something else.
Yeah, that's very that's very admirable. Good for you.
So staying on the topic with bookings, can you touch a little bit on what it's like working with an agency and what that process is of getting booked?
Yeah. So one of the most consistent questions I get is what is this? How do you get signed? And something that people don't really understand about modeling is the best way to find work is to have an agent. With that being said, when you have an agent, that's like having a team member. So a lot of people, they get signed and they think that they're owed work. But that's not really how it works. You have a working, functional relationship with your agent. You get an agent that gets you jobs. The benefit to you having an agent as talent is the access to the network of companies that they work with. So the reason I chose my agency, which is Doherty Agency, I chose that agency because I heard great things about their community, great things about their talent and the people that they work with, but they also have a very good clientele list when it comes to getting paid jobs. And whenever I started getting work and like, oh, Dick's Sporting Goods and GNC, when these jobs came up, it's a lot to do with the reputation that the agency has. So if you go for a smaller agency, you might get smaller jobs. You go for a bigger agency, you might get bigger jobs. But the lesson there is you want to pick an agency that has a good community, that has a good support system. And when you get signed, that's great. You know, everyone's excited, but it could be months, even a year before you get your first job. So there's a lot of patience required to be in this industry because it's not something you can do full time off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, like, it's interesting from a perspective. My era, when I used to hear the word model, I would think print and like kind of how you set the tone when we first started talking about yourself. It's like most people go to social media, Instagram. I assume you're also really big on social, those platforms as well. Are you parallel those two, or do you kind of lean more towards the print, or how does that work in your environment? Because Alaina, obviously, you're an influencer. You go more towards the social channels, and Christian, you seem more like you're probably on both. Is that right? Or
So it's really for me and what I'm doing, it's personal preference. The commercial and lifestyle print space isn't there's no gravity in having a good social presence. It can help you sometimes, but most of your jobs come from your agent.
I see.
For me, I do a lot of e-commerce in Pittsburgh. I'm not really in other states or other countries. Like it's a smaller agency in that regard. So you can have a large social presence and do the Instagram, do the Facebook, and have all of those things as well as being a model. For me, with the John Maxwell and the speaker side and the business side of things, I kind of gear more towards the professional side of things. So I try to keep things clean and I'm still finding my social identity. So I'm still trying to figure out what do I want to show people and how do I want to show it? Because being a model and a speaker, there's really big differences in the community that you're in. Because on one end, I have people that are my age and we're in content and we're in commercials and it's having a good time. And then there's another side where it's all professionals over the age of 35. So there's two different relationships that I have with people, and I'm really trying to figure out what I want to portray to people. But for me personally, I really focus on the job itself and the results we create from it. And honestly, with the modeling, I don't have to have a social media presence at all.
Okay, that's cool.
So in the beginning, we were talking about how runway models are different from what you do, and then there's also fit models, which you do, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that? Because
Yeah,
I
of
know a
course.
lot of people aren't familiar with what a fit model is.
Yeah, so really, and when we say fit model, we don't mean physically fit. Fit modeling is the measurements that I have are going to be the best sizes and quantity that they have in the inventory. So I'm a 32-32 pant, medium to large shirt. That's one of the most bought sizes in men. So when a company has in excess all of these sizes, you're going to have that size on deck faster than any other size. You're not going to have a whole bunch of 40 by 32s because that's not something people buy a lot. So me being a fit model, so Route 21 has clothes or American Eagle has clothes, and they need to try the clothes on actual people before they get, put into merchandising and go through that whole process. So whenever I go to these companies and I'm doing fit modeling specifically, I put it on, I give feedback on, is the armpit too tight? Is the waist too tight? Is the neck too tight? Is are my arms longer than typical? Like, there's a lot of things that we nitpick to figure out, what does this look like? And, when you talk about like 5-inch short, 6-inch short, and then we try to figure out, based on the competitors, what do we need to change? How does it feel on you? Different stuff like that. So really, when you think about fit modeling, it's having the right sizes. That's very important. You got to be the right sizes that they need, but also you have to be in a position where you give good feedback. So this is a vocal role. Some companies kind of just let you put it on and they see how it looks on camera, and other companies ask you to your face, how does it feel? I've done it for North Face as well, where it's, how does this product feel? Is it irritating you here? Is it too tight here? Last year was a 7-inch short. Now it's a 5-inch because that's what's trending. So being a fit model is a lot more than what it seems like on the surface. It's more than just kind of looking good in clothes. You got to make sure that you can speak to the clothing.
Right. Yeah, we were just talking about fit models in my product development class. So I was like, oh, Christian does that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a really important part of the product development process. Moving into what are some of your favorite campaigns that you've done?
Favorite campaigns. And I've been in a mixture of different things. I'd say fun. Probably I did a commercial for Highmark Health. And the funny story about this is, this was my biggest job I had at the time. This was like 2 years ago. I still have never found this commercial anywhere. And I did the audition. I got sent the audition while I was in Puerto Rico. So I was on vacation. I got sent the audition in Puerto Rico. Horrible service, like stranded. But I still wanted to do it. So I was like, all right, let me do it. So I went all out for this audition. I had to act like the camera was my little brother and I was face painting him at a tailgate. Very specific instructions. So I took a cutting board from the Airbnb and I put like condiments on it, like ranch and ketchup and mustard. And I made it look like it was makeup. And I had a makeup brush. Used the makeup brush and all these condiments, using it on the camera, acting like it's my little brother. And I did it in about an hour or so after a few takes. I actually get the job. And this was the highest paid job I had at the time. So I actually get the job. And what was so funny about this was, the photographer that was working this commercial was the first photographer that ever took my digitals. And I didn't have to face paint anyone. All we did was play cornhole for 4 hours. So that was probably the most fun I had. Super nervous because I was like, this is a high budget thing. Oh no, we just played cornhole the whole time because it was based on a cookout. So
That's
it was
awesome.
definitely fun.
And did you say you've never seen the commercial?
Nope, haven't found it. Yeah. A lot of the work that you create, you probably won't find unless it's with like a
Honestly,
big
yeah.
client.
That's how I work with when I do ads for TikTok. Like I never see them. Sometimes like my friends will see them and send them to me, but other than that, like
Yeah.
It's funny that they don't.
What?
It's funny that they don't tag you guys. Like,
Oh yeah.
for like,
one.
why wouldn't they like tag you or send it to you so you can share it? Like that just seems like bad. Like they just fell off.
A lot of brands don't tag. There's very few that I know that actually do. I don't know the particular reason. I've never asked.
It's probably because they can't control your personal page. Once they direct them to you, if you guys are doing stuff that doesn't fit in their brand, they can get in trouble nowadays. So
yeah, and that happens with agencies where people get dropped because of something that happens, or if they change their look, or you never know. So it's probably better that they don't associate publicly in that manner, because you can't predict what will happen.
That was my first thought when you said you kind of are figuring out what your social identity is. It's my first thought was like, it's kind of like a nice way to CYA, like especially nowadays, you can offend some, like it doesn't matter what you say, there's always the opposite belief system, and the more you put out there, eventually you're going to have naysayers. So it's kind of nice to not give them ammunition against you. So that's kind of smart.
Yeah, and I've met a few people that don't have social media at all that work in the e-commerce space,
Wow.
especially people that are like over 30. There was a guy I did a shoot for Nemacolin and Woodlands, and it's a resort
Oh,
over here in
yeah.
PA,
Good
and
course. The only problem with Nemacolin is now you have to stay there to play the golf courses.
they
That
they got
sucks.
you, they got
That
you.
sucks. That
No
sucks. They
public, nobody
changed
from the
that.
public can come in.
We
You
used
got
to
to stay
we
there.
used, we used to play that a lot, and they freaking changed it. Now you got to stay there. It sucks. But oh god, sorry. I
No, but
digress.
we did a shoot for them, and there was a guy there, and I met him, and he was actually he was a nurse at Ruby Hospital, and he was paid to be a principal in some other commercial, but he was like, I don't have any social presence at all. So he's like the fourth person I met that has no social presence that gets booked for jobs, because really what matters is the comp card they send in or your profile that your agency has. They don't need to find you, but if you have it, it's a bonus.
Okay. Do you need like if and I this isn't my world, so this might be a stupid question, but if I got casted to be on TV,
Mhm.
I believe I need like a SAG card or whatever they call it, like to make sure I'm like an actual actor or whatever, like pay my dues
Yeah.
to that. Do you need anything like, is there a comparable thing? Like, can anybody be a quote unquote model who can get like on TV, or is there like qualifications or like a union, or how does that work?
So the union comes into play depending on the client and the kind of work.
Okay.
Sometimes you get sent jobs that say that they only want non-union, just unaffiliated
Okay.
people. It
Okay.
just depends. If you get sent a job, if they like your look and they say, "Hey, we're union," then you need to know that. Um, because I particularly don't have to be.
Okay.
Um, there was a job I had that was union, but the only way it affected me was it was low budget. So it was just within the budget of the union. It didn't really affect me getting booked or not booked. But when you have bigger projects, especially movies, that kind of comes into play with movies more than anything. Now, anybody can be a commercial and lifestyle print model. You can, if I went to Dick's Sporting Goods and they said, "Hey, Christian, you know somebody with this look, build, and style," they might just book you without an agent.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
if you fit the
Do they just 1099 you, or how, like, is that how
I
they pay
believe
you?
so. Yeah, I believe
Okay, yeah.
so. And then you could also just get signed like that day. That's
Oh, that's
also,
cool.
people have gotten signed because they find work, but they're like, oh, I want to do this. I don't want to handle all the paperwork and all so they just get signed that day and tell someone, hey, I have a client, and boom, it happens that fast. It just depends. Everyone has different journeys with this industry, but the one thing I know about it is it's very possible that everybody can do it because everybody's marketable.
Sure. I like that. Yeah. What you got on your next question there, Helena? I see you checking the notebook. What do you got?
Oh, yeah. Um, so you're obviously very busy with modeling and speaking and coaching. So what does a typical day in the life look like for you?
Oh man, day in the life. It gets crazy sometimes. Um even I'll tell you about tomorrow. Tomorrow I have Route 21. So get up, head to Route 21, be there at 8:45 in the morning, and we'll shoot until 12. I have a half day. So, we'll go there. I'll probably put on, if we're shooting PDP, which is for social media or for their website, I'll probably put on 30 outfits, 25 to 30 outfits, and fly through that. Hair and makeup's pretty quick because I'm a guy, so it just you don't need much. Fly through those outfits and then leave there, drive to American Eagle. I'll be there 1 to 5, so I'm done at 12, and I think American Eagle is about 35 minutes away, so we're cutting it tight. But make it down there, go to American Eagle, and for American Eagle, I am the fit model. So we'll be putting on clothes. Except at American Eagle, it's not really, I don't have to explain how it fits. They just kind of film content of me in the clothing and they send it to the executives and then they approve or deny. But then I'll be there until 5, and every Thursday is basketball. So I'm headed to play basketball right after that. So, if you didn't catch on, I don't eat a lot because I just don't have time. if I'm at a location all day, typically they feed me, and that's great. But if they're 2 half days, I got to find time in the middle. So, you just kind of make it work. But more than I'm in a studio, I'm in my car, just driving everywhere. Last week, I've been so busy. I was driving. I had Route 21 all day, and then I left for Cleveland. I had to do a glassware company in Cleveland, and came back for Route 21 again the next day. So that's 3 days in a row of just back and forth, which has happened on multiple occasions. So a day in the life is constantly driving around, moving around. It's busy. So you got to find time to eat. You got to find time to, traffic going from city to city is like not ideal, especially because every job is done at rush hour, no matter what city you're in. And it's the worst drive home every time.
Yeah, that sucks. I mean, the commute sucks, but
Yeah.
it sounds, I would
Yeah,
think
the
there's a lot of
driving.
people who want to get in this space. That sounds like a very, I mean, I know traffic can be but most people have to commute in their jobs nowadays. But it sounds like a fun life, to be honest. Like you get
Oh,
to
yeah.
kind of see the trend, especially if you enjoy that kind of stuff. Like
Right.
me thinking about changing my clothes 30 times in one day sounds like hell. But there's a lot of people that are like, oh my God, I would be able to wear these clothes and work with these cool companies. So I
Yeah.
bet you there's a lot of people out there. And that kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. If there is someone watching this, that is interested in getting in the game, they can reach out to you on that email that you said earlier in the
Yeah.
episode, and you can kind of start to guide them on a kind of a journey to get into the space.
Absolutely. I've helped many people, whether that's get signed, find work, or just teach basic professionalism. Something that a lot of people are missing nowadays is just professionalism, is being cleaner in the sense of, do you have your P's and Q's in order? And a lot of it is, especially with being a model, people think that it's all visual, that it's just, oh, you got the look, you get the part. But a lot of it can come down to, are you easy to work with? Are you diligent? Are you respectful? Are you quick? I mean, there's been times where I've been on set and they value me just because I change fast, and
Sure.
then when you change fast, but you also put the clothes back on the hanger, you don't just ball them up. You got 2 brownie points now. So there's a lot of things that people don't really understand about the industry. And a lot of it's just reaching out. You got to ask somebody. When I first started, and this is really surprising, when I became a model, I reached out to like 40 people, like right before I actually became a model. I submitted and it took 2 weeks. So during that 2 week period, I'm DMing people. I'm typing in Pittsburgh model, DMing everyone. Oh, hey, you got any advice? Any advice? And one person answered me. And I actually knew of her, and she gave me very vague advice. And she was kind of like, oh, submit, we'll see what happens. And sure enough, a lot of the people that DM me nowadays are people that seem well established, that seem like, 60K follower, 40K follower, 30K follower. And they'll ask me and say, how are you getting consistent jobs? And I think that ties back into professionalism. I take pride in the work that I do. I take pride in the people that I meet. And a big thing about me is networking is a superpower. And people think that they just deserve to be given these opportunities and not want to put anything into it. So, for me, this has been such an interesting lesson because I was the guy asking everybody for advice. And I wanted to know, how can I make the most of this? How can I become the guy? I don't know what modeling is, but how can I be good at it? And no one helped me. There was not a lot of help there. And I'm grateful for it because now I know what works and what companies look for and how to be bookable. And when people ask me, how can I make this a full-time job? I said, it's you can do it, but we got to talk about, what do you bring to the table as a professional and as a person more than your look? So that's something that I really take pride in, is teaching people, because I know where I was at during COVID. I had all kinds of facial hair, afro. I was looking nuts, and I still got signed to an agency and made something out of it. So here we are 3 years later. And I want to make sure that people, if they want to do something, they absolutely can. But let's take calculated risk and figure out what's going to work.
I think that advice can be applied to anyone listening who, even if they're not in the modeling or content creation space. I mean, I'm a much older cat than both of you, and like I hire people for other businesses, and I would say there is a level of professionalism that is not there. And sometimes it's on them, and sometimes it's just they don't know what it looks like or what, companies expect. Like people will show up and for one of the businesses that I'm on the leadership team, the age range is like they have assistants and they could be early high school. So they come in looking cool to their demographic, right?
Right.
But they're going into a professional business and you don't wear sweatpants in a profession. Everyone's wearing like dress clothes and they're like, they stand out and they're looking at you like, what am I doing wrong? You're like, oh boy, I wish someone would have taught you,
Yeah.
it doesn't make them bad people. It's just as an employer, you're like, okay, we're going to start a little further up the stream on helping this young professional, kind of grow.
Yeah.
But also adding value in anything as a person and as an employee or a contractor. Like you mentioned, like being easy to work with, but then also being willing to change fast, which is better for the shoots, I'm sure, for putting the stuff back on the hanger. It's easier, you're less of a hassle, you're more of a value. So those are some lessons that anyone paying attention could benefit from.
Yeah, it's always the small things that sneak up on you in the long run that, I never realized. One of the biggest things people ask me, what's one of the things that gets you booked so much besides your look? And the funniest thing is it's being grateful. The first job I ever had was Dick's Sporting Goods, and it was for a box. And I was like, wow, I'm about to be on a box. So I was freaking out. And I had a moment of clarity while I was shooting. I was like, I might never do this again. People never get work. It's what I'm finding out. And I said, I might never come here again. I might never do this again. So I said, okay, I need them to understand how grateful I am for this, because this was awesome. Didn't even see the finished product, didn't know what was going to come of it. So I sent them an email a day after, and I emailed him. His name was Vince. I said, Vince, thank you so much for working with me. It was an absolute honor. I hope it turns out great. Hope to see you again. If I don't, it was a pleasure. Very simple, nothing crazy. No email signature. It was like, I wasn't at that level yet where there was a professional behind the typing. It was just me. And then I got an email. He didn't answer me. Then I got an email 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, and it was another Dick's Sporting Goods, except it was direct. It wasn't like, hey, submit. We want to submit you. No, it was, they want you. I was like, okay, cool. I guess I did good on the first one. Went to that next shoot, and Vince was there. I said, hey, Vince, what's up, man? How you doing? He's like, oh, we've been good. And he said, I just want to let you know, in 35 years of photography, nobody has ever sent me a thank you email. And we needed you to come back. And so, like, long story short, I did 30 products. And that attitude and perspective changed in everything that I do in modeling. And there's so many other tips and tricks that I do for gratitude, but like that lesson brought me to, wow, okay, people want to be valued just as much as people that are models. They want to be admired. They want to be, oh, we like you, you're great. As much as that feels good, the people that are behind that, they want to feel good too. They want to feel like, you appreciate their presence. They want to feel like you take pride in your work and substance. And ever since then, it's changed everything. And a lot of my rebookings are due to my gratitude.
Yeah, I have to admit, when Alaina set this up, I knew you more as model than Christian and all
Yeah.
the stuff that you just said. I'm like, well, what the hell? What value am I going to add to this damn podcast? And you guys are just going to talk fashion. I don't know shit about any of this. But I would say that you're obviously much more than a model, and I don't mean that stereotypically. I just mean that honestly. Like, and I think people who are watching on YouTube or wherever, and then people who are listening on the podcast, you don't have to be a model to enjoy this or to respect you and your craft, because you found a niche, you found your business line, but you also are instilling things that a lot of us as business leaders or people just in the community wish there was freaking more of, because a lot of people don't dot the I's, don't cross the T's. It's me, 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 me. And it's so easy to be like that in today's world, but it's the little things like the thank you emails. Even if it doesn't turn out to be 2-3 more jobs, it's still the act of kindness that more people need to do. And I think this podcast turned into be way better than I expected. For me personally, just because it was much more interesting than just talking fashion.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're at our mark. I know Alaina gets really frustrated after the 30-minute mark. Do you have any more questions, or do you want to wrap?
Yeah, I have one more question.
All
This
right.
is a big one. What do you
Good
want to
one.
be known for?
I think that out of the experiences I've had, people I've met, the one thing that I would always be grateful for and to be known for is the impact I have on others. Um, this sense of glory for me is looking at a person or group of people that learned from me or the value that I could bring, and they applied it in their life, whether it be to their family, to their professional development, to their group that's listening to them. Fostering leadership and guiding the youth particularly is something that I have so much respect for and I take pride in. If something that I came across, I would speak on my name. My name being Christian Jones. I know a lot of Christians, and Jones is the second most used last name in the world. And I used to think to myself, I don't think of my name as something that's so different. But if you say my name, I want you to always remember that value comes with it. That if you contact me, or if you meet me, or if you know me, that the one thing that I will do is pour into you with what I can. And if you walk away and you feel some type of obedience to your disciplines, something that'll help you grow, something that'll help you be more fulfilled, then I've done my job.
Excellent. That's a good answer.
Very, very good.
All right. Well, Christian, this was fantastic. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. I hope there's our paths cross. I mean, there's several things that we have in the pipeline for the next couple of months. So I'm sure Alaina can get in touch with you. And if you ever are out in Pittsburgh, you want to meet up, that'd be fantastic. One question, as you come back to Pittsburgh, favorite restaurants, coffee shops, bars, just a question we kind of always ask. What are some of your favorite joints in the burg?
For me, I love a good coffee shop. I'll stop at a coffee shop in an abandoned city, because I just love coffee shops. But restaurants, there's a place called Garbarino's. It's in
Okay.
Shadyside, and
Okay.
it's like you drive right past it, you wouldn't even know. It is a really good spot. It's affordable,
Sweet.
really good Italian. I like Talia downtown, really good Italian.
Yep.
Big Italian guy. But yeah,
Okay.
I definitely say you got to check out those two places. And if for some reason your paycheck was bigger than it needed to be this month, you got to check out Pussidy's Garden. It's top two in the
Mm-hmm.
city for everybody. It's top two in the city.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And this was fantastic. Thanks for setting this up, Lena.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Cool.
Thanks for
Awesome.
joining.